type 2 diabetes based on limited evidence. The agency granting a request for a qualified health claim from Danone Health America. The claims lack full scientific support, but are allowed as long as they include disclaimers. A troubled plane builder could become part of Boeing.
Boeing is in talks to buy its supplier, Spirit Aerosystems. The Wall Street Journal says Spirit has hired bankers to explore strategic options and has had preliminary discussions with Boeing, though it's not certain the talks will result in a deal. Spirit Aerosystems supplied the fuselage involved in the Alaska Airlines door plug blowout in January. Spirit was split off from Boeing when it sold some of its factories in 2005. Spirit also supplies Boeing's competitor, Airbus.
Fox's Ginny Cosola. I'm Lisa Lacera. This is Fox News.
Hello, everyone. This is Lawrence Sutton, Chris Morse, and this is Free Speech News, where we're not politically correct, but we're biblically correct. And there's two things you're not supposed to discuss, politics and religion. I guess we do both, don't we, Chris?
We always do.
Throw it out the window.
Hey, listen, it's nothing like telling the truth and being biblically correct.
The truth shall set you free.
That's what I've always heard. We need a lot of it right now. It's everything on the national level with the Biden administration and how they like to blame it. They still blame everything on Trump. This is what I can't figure. When do you quit having that crutch?
Riding with Biden is all I got to say. I mean, listen, when you are where this administration is, the worst administration absolutely in my lifetime. I mean, Jimmy Carter, he gets to go to his grave as not knowing he was the worst president in the history of the United States. And frankly, and I'll just say this, for what it's worth, Carter, I don't think, did his on purpose. I think this is done on purpose. I just do not believe that the incompetence that our current administration shows is done on accident.
You know, when you sit back and you analyze Democrats, number one, I feel like communist.
They are.
But you see people in the past like JFK was a Democrat.
Right.
But he was a conservative type Democrat. I always say I believe if John F. Kennedy had been alive today, he would have been a Republican. Because he had Republican values.
Here's the thing. I mean, with JFK, you look at some of the things that JFK did. JFK lowered the tax rate more than any president that we've had in history since the tax rate started. He took a chopping block to the tax rate. I'm sure there's things that JFK on a social end of things. I mean, he was still, I think, a liberal on the social end of things, but for most of the other things, he was pretty conservative. I mean, he was against the war even. I mean, that was one of the reasons I believe, in my opinion, that he was killed was because he was not going to take us into Vietnam.
But he was killed by his own government.
It looks like that more and more each day, as more stuff comes out. It does. There have been a lot of people that were the scapegoat that sort of like pin the tail on the donkey, and they picked these like Lee Harvey Oswald. Mm-hmm. I don't think he had a thing to do with it. Well, I got a little bit, I'm just going to tell you, I got a little bit of knowledge on firearms. I know a little bit about the Italian Karenko rifle and that round. And short of a miracle by the hand of God, I don't care what type of a sharpshooter you are, there's no way to have made that shot with that rifle at that time. It was impossible.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you. Ballistically speaking, it was impossible to make that shot. I don't care who the sniper was.
Here we are with one of our conspiracy theories again.
Oh, yeah. But you know what? Here's the crazy part. That may always be a conspiracy theory, But there's been so many things that we've talked about in the past that was conspiracy theory that just turned out to be plain conspiracy. And I don't want to be that way. I really don't. I wish our media would report the things properly. I wish our government would do the proper things.
Our media is terrible. All they have done over the last 10 plus years is polarize Americans.
So, I heard this saying the other day. It says, and of course this number's a little bit high, but it was done just to make a point. But it says 1% controls the world, and they take 4% to help control 90% of the population, where 5% of the population is trying to wake up the 90%. And I really believe that me and you are part of that 5%. I know we're not part of the 4%. The 4% are the ones that said everything that they have said up until this point that I'm just not going to mention right now on radio because it's just not worth getting kicked off. But if people have listened to us enough, they know what it has to deal with. And there's a lot of other things that we have brought out that people looked at as conspiracy theory, and it's just turned out to be plain conspiracy. It turned out to be correct and true.
Yeah. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, I tell you what, I've got a lot of things right now that are on my agenda. I tell you one of the big things, and we're going to get into conspiracy theory on this, and I just find it absolutely remarkable, and it's not being talked about more on our media, is the FBI director, Christopher Wray. He's talking about that an attack will happen. It's not a matter of if, it's when. The attack will happen on the United States soil. He is telling everyone that there is more red flags and more terrorist signs and chatter right now than before 9/11.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? The other thing, too, that Christopher Wray made a very poignant point on this is that he is saying, unlike before 9/11, America really wasn't doing much in the Middle East. But he says right now we're currently bombing two separate Muslim countries with these people in here. So they're here in this country. They've come into this country. And I'm sorry, not all of them have come in looking to make a better life for themselves here in America. They've come in here to destroy America. And I tell you what, I'll be even willing to say this, Chris. Let's say 90% of the people that have come in, including even the military-age men that have come into this country, let's say that 90% have come in to make a better life for themselves. What about the other 10%? What do you think is going to happen there? And right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're somewhere close to 10 million people in the last 3 years. I think we're somewhere close to 10 million people in the last 3 years that have come into this country illegally. So even at 10%, you're looking at 1 million people that could be coming in here to do harm to this country.
It's frightening. And it's a shame that what Biden did to this country and his administration. It is teetotally uncalled for. They tried to reverse everything that previous administrations and especially Donald Trump had put in place. Like the first thing this idiot administration did was close the pipeline day one.
Well, I tell you this, I saw the statistic, and it even went back to the Obama era as far as people that are coming into this country. You have had, on average, starting in the Obama years, even starting in 2009, all the way through Trump time, you had anywhere between about 300,000 to about 800,000 people coming into this country legally during those years. The very first year Biden was in charge, it was like 1.5 million. Then it jumped to over 2 million. Then it jumped to over 3 million last year. And this year we're on course to maybe being 4 million people coming in this country illegally. So, Chris, I'm going to tell you something. What do you say about that? What do you think about those numbers, even coming from the Obama era? Why have they gotten so much more under Biden?
It's intentional. It's a way to, I think, to mess up our electoral college, to increase, in Tennessee, with the influx of people moving here from California and Illinois, New York, and all these other states, Michigan, coming this way, we're going to gain a seat or two in Congress, where California and other states are going to lose congressional seats.
Right.
Because of the way the population is, there's so many people moving into Texas, Florida, and Tennessee. I think they're the top 3 states in the union where people are moving to.
I saw a stat the other day that says that Tennessee is the fastest growing city in the country. Tennessee, I mean Nashville. Nashville's the fastest growing city in the country.
Yeah. Between it and Huntsville, Alabama, the corridor,
yeah,
is fastest growing. It's got to be the fastest growing region in the country.
I saw a skyline, and I would encourage people to go find of Nashville from 10 years ago to today.
Yeah,
and it's looked like it has doubled. That skyline has. And I remember when I first moved here in 2011, Nashville was fairly easy to get around. There was not that, I'll just tell you, coming from Tampa and Orlando, I found Nashville so much easier to get around in and drive.
To navigate and get around.
Yeah. But now, forget it, Chris. Now, I think it's easier to get around in Tampa and Orlando now, based upon the traffic that's in Nashville currently.
Well, Nashville, I said this about Atlanta for years, it was malfunction junction.
Yeah.
I think Nashville is bad or worse.
It is bad.
Our road system, our interstate system, has not kept up with progression. And I've said this, you get into Georgia on I-75, or you get in 65 north into Kentucky, you got 3 lanes. I'm going to tell you, I-65, they need to go from the Kentucky state line to the Alabama state line with 4 going north, 4 going south.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It is much traffic.
There's some places as you're coming in from 840 into Spring Hill that it drops down into 2 lanes.
Bottlenecks.
And if you go there at the wrong time, you're going to be there for 30 minutes or longer.
I never understood when they carried this expansion down, they should have went all the way to Saturn Parkway.
Right.
I never understood why they did it, and maybe on down to exit 46 during that segment. But it is so crazy that they've got that bottleneck when you get past Saturn Parkway north, and it goes back to 2 lanes, and then immediately you get up to 840. But that little stretch right there, it takes you, forever to get through.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you something. Since we had that big cold that we had in December,
potholes galore.
And I know they went in and they tried to fill them, but they are so bumpy. I got to be careful. I'm afraid I'm going to bust a tire out.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, and I honestly believe this, and I'd love to hear back from TDOT. I believe they're doing something different with the hot mix when they resurface the roads.
Right.
I don't. They have either weakened something, because when they resurface a portion of 65, it ain't holding up that long.
Right.
Something ain't right. And that's the way you just keep, you're guaranteed business if you do something to change the mix, or something's wrong.
Yeah.
Because we have way too many potholes. Back in the good old days, you didn't have it like that, But listen, since Boss Doss from Lawrence County carried that gasoline tax to throw it up another 10 cents on everybody on diesel and gas. And we had, I think when they were toting that bill, he carried that for Haslam.
Yeah.
And that's what got him beat, okay?
Clay Doggett was the one that beat him.
That's right. That's what got him beat.
Yeah.
Whether he likes it or not, it did.
Yeah.
The thing about that is we had a $2 billion plus surplus in gas or in TDOT funding back then when that was carried. And one thing you don't do as a Republican is increase taxes.
Yeah.
You just don't do it. And I haven't seen, we're getting all this extra money, but the road conditions have worsened. They ain't got better. They're worse.
It's probably because of all the people that have moved here,
and there's a lot of traffic. And I agree with that too.
I mean, it just hasn't kept up. And I mean, this is the problem. And people, a lot of politicians, they love growth. Okay, a lot of businesses, they love growth, but the normal mom and pa, the normal people that just go to work and go home and raise a family, growth does not help us. It actually hurts us because of the increases that we will see in taxes, especially. I mean, I want to tell you something. We're in for a hurting in property taxes. Everybody around here was gotten up in arms because our trash tax, let's call it, doubled, okay, after remaining the same for 20 years. Well, our taxes here for our property, I'm telling people right now, get ready, because all the people that have moved in from California and Michigan and New York and other places, and they're coming in and they're driving up these prices. They're bringing in, not only they're driving up the prices of the property, it's making property hard for people to buy. More farms are being sold, more homes are being put on there, and there's just not the money. I'm just telling you, there's just not the money. A $300,000 house property, let's say it brings $1,500 a year in property taxes, okay? And they brought in 2 kids with them. That $1,500 doesn't do nothing for the education even.
It don't cover it.
Yeah, I mean, no. I mean, we're looking at $12,000, I believe, is what the average cost is money put aside by the state per individual student here in the state of Tennessee, not Lawrence County. Lawrence County actually gets shortchanged. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but we were discussing it when I had the candidates on for 2 weeks in a row, and Lawrence County was getting like $800 to $1,000 less than what the average Tennessean was getting per student.
Wow.
So, I mean,
the rural counties will suffer.
Yes, but here's the
more than a Williamson County or a Murray County.
Well, but see, here's the thing, is that, there for a while Murray County was a rural county, and over the last 6 to 8 years especially, they've been changed more from a rural county into a metropolitan. And they're having terrible time with their tax rate and building rates and having to build new schools.
Not only that, but their water.
Yeah. But guess what, Chris? It's coming here.
Yeah. It's
coming here to Lawrenceburg. And it's going to hit Giles County if it's not already hit Giles County. So I don't know the answer. I'm sitting here talking about all the problems, okay, and I'm not a problem type of guy. And this is a free country, so I can't say, well, don't move here, okay? That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that with growth comes a lot more expenses. I'm going to give you a perfect example of this, Chris.
And also, it increases crime.
It does. And I've never understood that, how that correlates. I mean,
it does.
I know it does, but I mean, why? I mean, what's the correlation? More people gathered, I guess, more opportunities, I guess?
I don't know. I guess the thugs are looking where people are moving to, and they move as well.
Yeah. But I want to give everybody an example just so they can know what to expect coming here as we keep growing in this county. But when I bought a house in 2004, Chris, and in 20 years, my property taxes have tripled in Florida. They've tripled. And so has the population. The population tripled, and so is my property taxes. So
now, Florida is one of the states like Tennessee. They don't have a state income tax.
They don't have a state income tax, sales tax. I mean, they're a very low tax rate state, kind of like Tennessee is. But I'm telling you, with all the people that have moved in, here's the crazy thing. People that move into metropolitan areas, Chris, in particular, they expect government to take care of them. When people that have moved in on a farm or anything else are like, government, leave me alone, let me do my thing, I'll take care of myself. And I've seen this happen. I've seen this happen in our county commissioning meetings. I've seen people that have bought homes here, Chris, and they bought a home with a dirt road that is, let's say, a quarter of a mile, tenth of a mile or so from their house, and it's on their property, it's their road, but yet they expect the county commission and the county to take care of their road for them, even though they're the only house. Because that's how it was in California. That's how it was in Michigan. And they want that road taken care of.
That's right. Something I want to turn everybody's attention to, trying to keep up with all these bills in the House and Senate is like a nightmare on Elm Street because we got way too many.
I guess Bill Lee would be Freddy Krueger.
Or Edward Scissorhands one. But there's a House bill, and House bill's number is 2013. It's being sponsored by Sam Whitson out of Williamson County. And I've said this several times, this guy should have been term limited at the ballot box a long time ago. And then we got Senate Bill 2414 by Art Swan. And this is trying to take away some powers of the political parties, Democrat or Republican, through what we call a convention or known as a caucus.
Which is in our Constitution.
Which is in our Constitution. So I love it when these so-called Republicans...
You know the R stands for reprobate for a lot of them.
For a lot of them, I agree. Or my other favorite word from my favorite uncle, Richard Archie, trans Republicans.
Yeah.
They don't know what they are. But they want to try to say, we want a bill that requires everybody to be put on the ballot through a primary. I'm going to tell you two guys, Sam as a House member and Art as a Senate member, y'all need to read your Constitution. I'm not for this at all.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Clay Doggett and I have been on the phone talking about this. He sent me a form to fill out to speak before this committee. And you know, what is so wrong with our Republicans is they get up there and they forget about we the people. It just really burns me internally because most of these guys probably can't even tell you about the Constitution.
No.
That's the sad part.
I know you gave me a very good education, and I hate saying it, but it's true, but I'm trying to correct these faults of mine. You know, you're the one that explained how a caucus really worked to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before that, I wasn't really aware of it, and I think there are times where a caucus makes sense, and there's times, you know, a primary makes sense. But guess what? The party, the people should be able to choose if they want to have a primary or choose if they want to have a caucus.
Amen.
And it should not be taken away.
Amen.
And I'm for rights. I'm for free speech, and I am for the Constitution. And I think everybody should participate. And if you don't participate, guess what? Now you see what happens when people have stopped participating.
Well, there again, people, I'd love, you know, one of the best things is for folks to educate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take my word for it. Don't take your word for it. Read it for yourself.
Educate yourself. Absolutely. I'm all for that.
And knowledge is a powerful thing.
Do we have, I'm sorry to interrupt you, do we have any co-sponsors on that bill?
None.
So that may mean we're not, probably won't get anything out of it.
Well, it's working its way through committee. Here's what gets me. We can't even get a simple bill passed to close the primaries. And a lot of people don't understand that.
Right.
That means you identify you're either a Republican or you're a Democrat.
So you can't be a trans Republican or trans Democrat. You're either
That's
one
right.
or the other.
You're one or the other.
Kind of like
means,
either you're male or female.
That means right now.
Yeah.
Think about, let's don't talk about, you know, our primary is going to be Super Tuesday.
Right.
This upcoming Tuesday.
Yep.
And you know that South Carolina had theirs on what, Saturday, February the 24th?
Yeah, it was last week, yeah.
And
Michigan just had it too.
they had theirs this past Tuesday. Boy, Trump whipped Nikki Haley like a stepchild in Michigan.
Did in California. I mean, South Carolina.
And in South Carolina, he did better than what they thought. Now, the thing about it is, you know, a lot of them there Democrats crossed over and voted in the Republican primary for Nikki Haley.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to tell you how bad Trump beat her, even in South Carolina, even that being her home state. She was a 2-term governor, and we had people crossing the lines to vote for her on the Democrat side. But you look at Ronald Reagan's race in 1984 against Walter Mondale. Ronald Reagan won 49 of the 50 states. The only state that Ronald Reagan lost was Minnesota, which was Walter Mondale's home state.
Home state, yeah.
Okay? And that right there should show you how bad, in my opinion, a candidate Nikki Haley is. Vivek Ramaswamy called it perfectly. He called her Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels. And I think, I mean,
you gotta love the guy, because
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something. If you hadn't pulled out of the race, I might have been voting for him come Tuesday. I'm just going to tell you, but we don't have that opportunity now.
What's your, you know, since we're on this, and I really want people to look at this Senate bill,
yeah, absolutely,
or House Bill 2013. It's another way our government, and yes, our Republicans, are trying to erode away our constitutional right. And we need to erode them at the ballot box. You said it the other day, the term limits are at the ballot box.
You know, the problem is, and what people need to understand, even though me and you both, we identify, even though we're not trans Republicans, we identify as a Republican, okay? But the Republicans and the Democrats are both guilty of trying to take away and remove our constitutional rights.
Yeah, both parties are. That is correct.
Both are guilty. And you know what? It's coming down to a conservative or it's coming down to a progressive. To me, it's no longer about Democrat or Republican. Are you a liberal, progressive, or are you a conservative? One
Christian.
or the other. Christian, yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm not about anything taking away voting rights.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you.
Let's have a little fun. Let's spend a couple of minutes.
Okay.
At the most. What's your prediction on Trump's vice presidential pick?
You know, it's kind of funny. I have on my list here, and I know you can't see that.
No, I can't. I ain't got my glasses.
I know. But one of the things I had put on here that we could get to is Trump's list of VPs.
Yeah.
And Trump's got a huge list of VPs.
Wait a minute. We hadn't rehearsed this either.
No, we haven't.
It's amazing how we brainstorm alike. But what do you think?
Well,
I'm fixing to throw a big curveball.
I'm gonna want to hear it, but I'm just gonna tell you, just so you see, this was what I brought in for my from my notes. So give me your curveball, and I'm going to tell you what I got from the Hill here.
I'm going to tell you, if I could persuade this gentleman, Donald Trump, in any way, I would firmly be looking at North Carolina's Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson.
Boy, I'm going to tell you, that's a good pick. That's
I'm
a good
tell
pick.
You, that guy in 2018 came out of nowhere. Not like Obama. It's totally different, totally other end of the spectrum.
Correct.
But this guy, I mean, he's spot on. When he stood in front of the Greensboro, North Carolina City Council and ate their lunch and made them like it about his Second Amendment right, that guy became an instant superstar. And he's worth watching. I tell everybody that can go and Google and watch some of his talks. And I had him on the radar a long time ago. And if I was Donald J. Trump, I would want that guy right beside me.
I'm going to tell you something. I like him, and it was kind of funny. Last year, our illustrious, they're not legislators, they're, what do you call Justin Pearson and Justin
They're
Jones?
activists.
Activists, yeah.
They're pure satanic activists.
So Justin Jones went to North Carolina because some students got upset that a guy was carrying legally in a bookstore in North Carolina, and they got upset and they got triggered and they needed their safe space. And good old Justin Jones, he goes over there and he's trying to tell everybody they don't need a gun. We don't need guns. I'm going to tell you something. That's what all communists do.
Well, what did Mark Robinson do that same day?
Mark Robinson, when he heard about it, he went to the town next door, and they had he did a big rifle, AR-15 rifle giveaway. It's just like, here you go.
That was amazing.
You know what? I love what that man did, and he is a good one.
And I'll tell you another. I'm gonna lay out a couple of more picks.
Yeah,
I like Vivek Ramaswamy.
I'm gonna tell you something. I'm going.
But I think
he's hard. He's hard to nail down because he's never ran for anything.
That's right.
So you can't, but I'm going to tell you, if he says half of the stuff he said he was going to do, man, he would make the best president we ever had. I'm just going to tell you.
But before I picked him, there's I like the South Dakota
Kristi Noem,
governor.
See, if I'm just going to tell you, and I've said this numerous times,
very constitutional lady.
She is the only governor that did not shut down her state.
That's right. Out of
50 states, on 49 shut down their states during COVID.
In some facet.
Yes. You know what Kristi Noem says? She says the Constitution.
Don't give her that right.
That's right. That's correct. And all she has done, even the Biden administration 2021, said, you cannot have fireworks display up there at Mount Rushmore. You're not going to do it. And typically, because it's at a national park, Mount Rushmore is, there was always fireworks before that was paid by the government, by the United States government for people to come to. So they told her, we're not going to do it, and you're not going to do it. So you know what Kristi Noem did? Kristi Noem went and got South Dakota into the fireworks business, and they had a big fireworks on July 4th at Mount Rushmore. So
woman's got a backbone.
I'm going to tell you something. She does, and she's on this list. And I'll read the list to you, and it was a fascinating list.
Well, I'm going to say one more. I like Tim Scott in South Carolina as well.
Well, and that's what I was going to tell you. Here's who is on, and this is from Trump's mouth. We got Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, Ron DeSantis, Byron Donalds.
Out of Florida.
Yep.
Another good one.
Yep. Kristi Noem. This was a wild card, but I'm not opposed to it. Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, from Hawaii.
Yeah. That is being on his short list, along with Governor Abbott.
Okay.
Those are the ones that are on his short list that Trump has confirmed currently right now, that these are the people that are on his short list. And I got to tell you something. The only one that I would pause on this list would be Tulsi Gabbard, just because she's a Democrat, or was a Democrat.
So was Trump.
I
being
know
honest.
Yeah, and there's a reason I have problems with Trump too. I'm just going to tell you, there's things. I mean, I can start with how he handled COVID. I can start with what he did with gun control. I'm going to tell you something. When Barack Obama is to the right of you on gun control, there's issues there, Chris. You know that?
Yeah.
And he was. Barack Obama, based upon what happened with guns during the Obama administration compared to what Trump did when he banned the bump stock, the people got the use of the bump stock through Obama administration. So I do have some issues with President Trump when it comes to him not being as conservative as I like. He's also starting to backtrack on abortion. He says, he'll say, I'm personally not for abortion, but I think we've gone too far right now. So, I don't know what. So, if it was my choice, I would pick Kristi Noem. I'm just going to tell you, Kristi Noem is who I would want as my vice president. But I would also like to see her run for president. So,
well, there you go. What else you got on your list today, Lawrence?
Well, Jim Jordan, House of Representatives. I like Jim Jordan.
I do too.
I'm going to tell you something. He's not been popular, but I've been pleased with Mike Johnson. I'm just going to tell you, I've been pleased with some. Could he do some things better? Yes.
Yes, he could.
And Jim Jordan was on that short list. And if Jim Jordan had been the Speaker of the House, I'd have been fine with that. If Mark Green had been our House Speaker, I'd have been fine with that too.
Speaking of Mark Green, he reversed his decision.
I seen that. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm glad he did.
I am too. I think he probably had a little nudge from President Trump, because we don't need to lose any more seats in Congress, period.
Right. No, we don't. And he wouldn't have lost that seat, but he is so influential up there.
You know who the Democrat is come out wanting Mark Green's seat?
No, who?
The wonderful Megan Berry, who used to be the mayor of Nashville.
Nashville. You mean the one that was caught cheating on her husband with
infidelity? Yeah,
with her security,
chief of security.
Yeah,
that's right. So that's what we need in D.C. If it ain't already a sewer enough, is to put another
sewer rat
crap
in there. Yeah.
up there in D.C.
Yeah.
And we sure don't need a Democrat in that seat, I promise you.
You know, I don't see that happening.
We don't need a Democrat in any seat.
Well, and you know what? That's a shame, because I like the idea of a two-party system. I used to like the idea of being able to debate these people 20 and 30 years ago.
Which president started the two-party system?
No, tell me.
Martin Van Buren.
Okay.
That's where the two-party system started, was under his administration.
I know Ben Franklin warned people about a two-party system.
He did.
And, you know, and I don't know, I haven't looked at his writings enough to really understand it, but from what little I do understand, he wasn't for a two-party system. He was for whoever can run. You know, it shouldn't be a two-party system. It should be whatever you are, you are.
Look at where we're at today.
I know. And I'm going to tell you something. I really think, unfortunately, we got a one-party system right now in a lot of places, even here in Tennessee.
In Tennessee, yeah.
When you can't get past a bill to not have open primaries anymore, what does that tell you? That doesn't speak well for the Republican Party.
The Republican Party at all. Because with me being on the state executive committee, we've asked, last year we put in for the bill for closed primaries, and they had done it the year before, and it has failed each time. That is sad. We don't have a super majority. Theoretically, we do, but we don't.
Yeah.
Because we got too many up there that are elected Republicans that are up there for their own self-righteous reasons.
Well, you know, I mentioned Jim Jordan and we got off track, but here's the reason I mentioned Jim Jordan. This is a tweet that's not dying that he sent out. And what he said, if you have bought a Bible or firearms recently with your credit card, look out, because the feds are looking for you.
Yeah,
they have gotten to the point.
And that tweet, that also includes anything associated with a firearm.
That's correct.
It be a clip.
Dick's Sporting Goods. I know. I mean, it's just, if a soccer mom.
Wait a minute. Dick's went totally woke.
I know that, but Dick's Sporting Goods is one of the companies on the list that the feds want credit card transactions from. So even if the soccer mom went to buy her kids cleats and shin guards and used a credit card, she may be showing up on Dick's Sporting Goods. Yeah. So, I mean, they had like 250 companies that they were looking at that the Fed wanted from these credit card companies, those transactions.
Oh, this past Tuesday night, I got to spend a little time with one of the most conservative congressmen in Washington. That was Congressman Andy Ogles.
I like Andy.
Andy's doing a great job.
He is. You know when you know you're doing a great job, and Andy's used to this by now because of how he stood up for our rights in 20 and 21 with the COVID, but the media absolutely hates him.
Well, you see what he just did recently.
Yeah. What
do you say about Hamas?
Yep. He said that we need to destroy them all.
Destroy them all.
Yep.
Guess what? I agree with him.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and I told him Tuesday night, I totally agree with you.
Well, and I will tell you this.
Because in Psalms 83.
Yeah. Yep.
It's there.
It's there. And I will give you another, I'm going to tell you right now, Hamas is here in America.
Right now.
Waiting. That brings me to another point. I saw a fascinating interview with a guy by the name of Eric Prince. Now, Eric Prince was the founder of Blackwater. Okay? You know who I'm talking about. Okay, so for other people that don't know who I'm talking about, Blackwater was a defense contractor that became very famous back during the Gulf Wars. Now, I had always thought negatively of Blackwater because of what the media had portrayed Blackwater to be over the course of those years, let's say between 2000 to 2010, when he actually sold Blackwater. But you want to talk about, in this interview, you want to talk about spilling the tea? Eric Prince was spilling the tea. And he was letting people know that when they were being blamed for doing things by the media, let me give you an example. He was told by the Defense Department that they needed 500 people to protect a, what are those things called? An embassy, okay, in certain countries. So he'd have to send 500 of his people. And then the media was talking about how he was being fined all these millions and millions of dollars because they were not doing the right things. Okay? Do you want me to tell you what the right things that they weren't doing? One of the things that they were doing, he was fined like $10,000 per helmet that he sent over with his people, or $25,000 for a vest, a bulletproof vest to send over with his people. And that's the reason he got out of the game, he said, because he said the fines that he was incurring was more than the money he was getting.
This Blackwater started December the 26th,
96. Uh-huh.
And Eric was a former Navy SEAL.
That's correct. That's correct. Fascinating. The guy's fascinating. But let me tell you what else he said in this. Me and you talked about this last week. What happened with our phones, AT&T, Verizon, all these phones shutting down. He said he would never say 100% sure, but he said he is definitely way above 50% and probably above 70% even, that it was actually a Chinese cyber attack. And he says, and our government's not letting people know this because they can't stop it. And he says China's just sending them a warning that if we go to stop what they'll do in Taiwan or Singapore or other places, that they'll do it again. They'll shut it down again.
What they're doing is testing the water.
Absolutely. That's exactly what he said.
And I talked with a guy last Saturday. You don't want to discuss these things, and I'm, on the radio, but it could happen, of how they could really do some destruction. And if these type things happen, they can't make them fast enough to get things going.
Right.
That's what's terrible. And guess what? On this item I'm talking about, and I want to reserve this, it's made in a foreign country, and we got to wait on it. There's your other problem.
Right.
And honestly, if something, that little short half a day. Now, one thing, wasn't nothing good about it, but it happened in the early morning hours, like 3:30 to 4 in the morning, when most people around here are asleep.
Right.
But it lasted till about a little bit after lunch that day.
I got mine serviced back about noontime.
About noon or 1 o'clock.
Yeah,
So
about noontime.
It was out
8 hours.
A good 8 hours plus.
Yep.
And people were already panicking.
I know. Wasn't that funny?
Yeah. And, I'm going to tell you, a lot of these people out here today, if things went back and we had to live like the Amish in Etheridge do, they couldn't make it. They couldn't live off the land.
I'll take it a step further, Chris. I don't think most people could go back to the 80s where me and you grew up in.
Yeah, before internet, before computers, before cell phones.
Right. Right. I didn't get my first cell phone until 97. And I was actually working as a salesman for 2 years prior to that, even before I broke down to get a cell phone.
Well, you had the beeper then, didn't you?
Huh?
Where somebody, or a pager, where somebody could send you a message?
I don't think I did.
I had a pager.
I went with it kicking and screaming because you could call my office and get my secretary and leave a message. And then if I came in the next morning or whenever, then I could return that phone call then.
You know, that brings on another subject. You think about the downfall of a nation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what this country has done with customer service?
Oh, it's terrible.
They have removed the customer from the service.
That's right.
You cannot call hardly anybody anymore and get a live body with a pulse on the other end.
So, you know, that's actually starting to change a little bit, and I'm going to tell you why it's changing. Is because it's called AI.
Artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to tell you, next 10 years, look out. It's going to replace a whole bunch of things. It's going to replace teachers. It's going to replace attorneys. It's going to replace doctors. I mean, you're going to see a lot of jobs that are done. It may even replace something like me and you are doing right now. It's going to replace anybody dealing with computers and software. You're going to see a big... I saw the other day that they anticipate an 80% change in the workforce just in the next 10 years.
Wow. It's frightening.
If you think we have seen in the last 10 or 20 years a huge change, and we have, okay? I mean, I'm talking 27 years ago since I had a cell phone. Man, think about that. If I had all that money back that I've spent on cell phones all these years, I'd be well over $30,000.
Lord. Now, did you mention to me, or did I dream this, that we've got a special guest Monday?
No, I got a guy that may come in next Friday.
Next Friday, okay.
And he's going to be talking about how to deal with if the lights go out.
Uh-oh.
Yes. So I haven't confirmed him yet. I'm working on him. But you know what? Fastest hour in radio. We got 4 minutes left. I want to touch on this subject. A year ago, last year, we had a balloon fly over the United States.
Plumb across the United States. Came out of Canada and went off the coast of South Carolina.
Right, before it was shot down.
Right.
Transmitting all the time. It was actually using internet that it was pulling from here in the United States even to transmit back to China.
But we've had balloon number 2.
We've had balloon number 2, and isn't it amazing it came in February again? I wonder what that's about. Now, we haven't heard as much about this balloon, and
it's kind of quiet.
It's kind of quiet, and it took them 7 days to figure out what it was. And now they're saying, oh, it's just a balloon that is an amateur balloon. But I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
I don't believe it for a minute.
You know, my dad, this is crazy, Chris. My dad said this 30 years ago. And it rings truer today than it did then. He said, son, believe nothing you hear and only half of what you see. And we're living in that time right now. What did Jesus say? Jesus said that if he didn't come back, that even his very elect would be deceived. The deception is bound. It's there all the time. And I'm going to tell you something, people that are listening to us, know this. Me and Chris, we might be wrong on some things. I get it. And we try to tell you this is our opinion. But there is no deception in our heart when we're telling you these things. We have nothing to gain from this, and maybe everything to lose. Mm-hmm. And I just want people to understand that we're trying to bring these things to our heart. We do a lot of research trying to get this information out. And I'll tell you what, Chris, I love how me and you both do it, because I don't tell you what to do. You don't tell me what to do. We just bring it.
And we bring it, and it's amazing how we don't discuss it, and we have the same ideas.
I know.
That's kind of weird.
It is.
And like I say, the good Lord brought us together for a reason. And I'm going to say, over the last couple of years, you and I have met a lot of good folks.
We have.
We've had people to try to turn us against folks. I mean, it's amazing, but we did our own homework. And like I said, we're down to the last 25 seconds, Lawrence. How quick?
Well, we got to give a shout out to Todd Warner.
Shout out. He was trying to call. That was one of my phone making a racket was him.
And shout out to Todd Warner for sponsoring our show, Todd. Thank you so much. Thank you for the things that you're standing up to. I saw again that
this is WDXE, W287AA, and W237FD Lawrenceburg. Broadcast services of
God bless
Prospect
everybody. We'll
Communications.
see everybody Monday. Have